If you put me in charge of your church's social media calendar, this is exactly what I would do.
Our calendar covers every major social media platform.
Plus a few of the not so major platforms, just in case.
Importantly, this calendar can be tailored to you depending on how much time and effort you have to dedicate to social.
So let's dive in. Well, hey there, and welcome to the Pro Church Tools Show. We're here to help you and your church navigate the biggest communication shift in 500 years. I'm Brady Shearer, your host. I'm joined as always by my co-host. We call him the limitless liturgist. It's Alexander Mills.
Hello, hello.
Let's talk about social media calendars. I think the place to start is by really just anchoring us in the current part of the social media cycle. Where are we? The part that we're in is the not so fun part. And that is where there hasn't been a significant amount of innovation in the past few years. What that translates to is that attention is extremely expensive on social media. And, you know, in terms of how you recognize this, obviously there's been like no new platform that's come out that has like engaged all of our attention. The cycle will usually happen like this. Either a new platform or innovation in social is revealed. All of the early adopters jump onto it. And attention is extremely cheap there. But the critics will say like, well, that's only for insert young people or insert whatever demographic here. And so like, that's not worth jumping on. And then we kind of get to like the midpoint of the cycle where most people are like, okay, this seems like it's sticking around. Let's get there. And attention is still usually cheap because in terms of like social media as a whole, this new platform and or innovation is still relatively new. And then we get to the end part of the cycle, which is where we're at right now, where we haven't seen an innovation or a new thing in a very long time. Attention is extremely expensive, and that can be despairing for some. This is what's true in virtually every communication industry. It's a little bit newer to us in social because social is young. If you think about radio ads, like there's no like novel way of doing a radio ad that's suddenly going to break through. If you think about mailers door to door, there's no like brand new way of doing this that will like see your ROI jump by 300%. But when something new on social does come around, last time it was TikTok, which then inspired vertical video across all platforms. And this innovation was so disruptive that it introduced a new era of social. That's something that is like incredibly rare. And so we're going to talk about the social media calendar because the best thing to do in this place is to be consistent and to show up and to take no weeks off and to not like despair. And then this is not especially helpful, but look, there's a reason why when we're in the early parts of the cycle, we on this podcast, we on our platforms are saying, do it, go now, because this will not last forever.
Yeah, and that's kind of the state that probably a lot of social media managers, a lot of churches feel where there was an era, if you were listening to the show and, you know, you mentioned it, TikTok with the popularity of short form vertical videos and on the heels of the discovery algorithm, all you had to do was post a short form video pretty much on any of these other platforms that had maturation like Facebook Reels or Instagram Reels or YouTube Shorts. And it's like, yeah, you got a pretty good chance of getting some attention on those videos. And now that's just not true because I don't even know how long has it been since TikTok introduced short form videos into our lives in that way?
It was pre-COVID, so like 2019
like
was
quite a long time now.
Not when it was released, but like COVID the first year was like TikTok's coming out party where everyone was like, I guess I'll download this. And the year or two before that was when it had really established itself as an up and comer.
Yeah. And so we really, in the last handful of years, really lived through quite a golden age of like an opportunity to reach a broader audience than you ever had before. Now, where we're talking to you now in the early, second quarter of 2025, there aren't too many like golden tickets anymore. And so it kind of feels like a grind. But there are still ways that you can not just only reach your audience, folks that follow your church, folks who have followed your church, but reach new audiences in this era of stagnation, for lack of a better term, as far as the platforms are concerned, while we kind of wait for the cycle to refresh with whatever comes next. I'm always eager to wonder, like, you'd have to be a prophet to figure it out, right? But it's like, you look around, what could someone come up with next that could disrupt this social world that we're living right now? You can't know unless you're the person that's gonna like figure it out. But I'm always eager to wonder, like, is it a new platform? Is it a new feature coming to one of these platforms that has matured, that, we're talking Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, hundreds of millions of users, and have been around for a long time. Is it a new feature that's going to disrupt one of those platforms? We just don't know until it comes, but it hasn't come yet. And so here we are.
Whatever it is, I guarantee we'll all hate it.
Yeah.
Because otherwise we would all jump on it right away.
Yes.
TikTok was so different and so strange that we dismissed it. And that's what that early part of the cycle looks like. For those that don't dismiss it, they are rewarded, but new platforms and new features come out all the time that people jump on and then they fizzle out. And so you've wasted that time and energy, but that's the risk and reward.
Totally.
Before TikTok, there was stories, right? That was the cycle where like you could publish a story and like every one of your followers would see it when it was hard to reach every one of your followers. Before stories, which was like 2015, it was just being on Instagram.
Yes, exactly.
It was like, we're all on Facebook. Like, I'm on Instagram. Okay, that's kind of a waste of a platform. Facebook bought it for $1 billion. What were they thinking? Here's the good news about the current era. When you have everyone on a platform, yes, attention is more expensive, but when you do break through, the upside is often greater because there's just more
so many people there.
Like back when attention was way, way cheaper, there was also way less people. That's why it was cheaper. Like if you think about real estate, it's like, oh wow, I can buy a house in this part of the state or this part of the country for this much. Wow, where I live, it's costing this much. Why? Well, nobody lives there. And so that's the whole point. Another positive about the era that we're in right now is that you don't need to post every single day. This social media calendar that we are about to get into does have posts for every single day, but we're going to provide different versions of this. So if you're like, I can only probably publish twice a week, guess what? That's good enough in this current era, which was not true in the previous era. Last week, it was the week after Easter, when we're a little bit ahead recording this. I took a whole week off publishing because I was like, I'm tired. And you know what? Churches are tired this week, so I'm just gonna. And guess what? I looked at my like analytics, and it still said like, oh yeah, for the previous 30 days, you got 1 million plus impressions on Instagram. I was like, great. Like, why? Because all the content that I published on YouTube and Instagram, and it's still reaching new people weeks and months after it was first published. That was not true in the previous era. So let's not fully despair. I also want to highlight that in this social calendar, we've left Sunday open. And there's two reasons for this. One, Sunday is obviously the day that we meet. So if you want to take a day of rest on social, it's perfectly fine because we're all meeting in person. Two, there's so much happening on Sunday that it's very easy for churches to post by simply like capturing what's happening, throw it on stories, capture an image, whatever it might be. Third, we have purposely structured this social media calendar to leave a space for promotion. So one day every single week is empty, it's vacant. So if you want to insert a promotion there once a week, you can do so without risking dragging your momentum down. So we'll give you recommended days for each of these types of posts, but you don't have to leave Sunday vacant. You could move one of the posts to Sunday and say, okay, that'll leave Thursday as an option for us to promote. You've got flexibility. Final thing, when attention is expensive, what can we do? Really only two levers you can pull. You can publish more, you can publish better. And those things are difficult. Like you're probably already publishing as much as you think you can. So when you hear me say, do more, like that's just the only lever that we can pull. Like if everyone is working hard, it's the cliche of the guy who's like first into the gym and last out. Like I got here at 5 a.m. Kobe was here at 3:30 a.m. getting shots up. Like that's what these legendary stories are told. And that's the reality. We can do more, we can do better. Ideally, we can do both, but it's also like, hey, what's realistic? Most important thing is consistency, okay? It's like any fitness regimen. It's not about like one day. It's about stacking days, stacking weeks, stacking months. You don't end up reaching, 1 million people plus every single month on Instagram the way I have from a day. It's because I've been on Instagram for 10 plus years and I've just been consistent that whole time, and slowly you push the boulder up the hill. Let's start with Tuesday and Thursday. This is going to be the base model, let's call it, of the church social media calendar. It's going to be a sermon clip on Tuesday and a sermon clip on Thursday. If you're curious why 2 sermon clips, I'd encourage you to go watch the YouTube video that we published recently about worship reels. We kind of talk about the importance of sermon content as the bedrock of your social media calendar. We talked about it on the podcast recently too.
Not that explicitly, I don't think.
Okay. Yeah. Sermon reels are still the most important thing.
Yeah.
Do them.
Yeah.
So if that's all you can do, it's also great because you've already got the work done for you in the sermon from the pastor. So Tuesday and Thursday. The way that we do this is when we review the sermon, we identify sermon clips that are at the intersection of faith and culture. Meaning the sermon clip should be just as relevant to a person that has no faith background as somebody who heard the sermon in the actual pews on the Sunday that it was preached. Scriptures are for all people, for all time, and they're full of categories of content, wisdom that is applicable to broad audiences. Doesn't mean you have to be a Christian. Purpose, finances, parenting, marriage, community, destiny, eternity, hope, despair, whatever it might be. And so what happens is when we preach from the Bible, naturally, we have moments where we talk about things that are valuable, useful, and interesting to people, irrespective of what they believe about God. Those are the parts that you want to pull and turn into sermon clips. Yeah. We have an entire YouTube video called the Church Social Media Masterclass. You can watch that. We get into specific exercises on how to do that. We won't do that here. When you create content that is broadly accessible, what it means is you have a greater likelihood of going what we would call viral for me. Viral for me is when you reach 10x the people that you normally would on a piece of content. So you don't need to reach 1 million people. If your baseline is 100 and you reach 1,000, that's a viral for you post. What it recognizes or what it represents is you introducing your church to new people for the very first time. Yeah. And the paradox is the more you reach viral, the more you reach local. Because if you reach 100 people and let's say half of them are local, that's 50 people that are local to your church that are now able to perhaps get connected for the first time. If you reach 10x that, 100 people, and let's say just 20% are local, so like half as many, 40% as many, you're reaching 200 people that are local instead of 50. So volume is more, even though percentage is less. And that's the paradox. If you want to reach local, you need to reach viral. In terms of where we're publishing these, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube Shorts, and TikTok. Those are the big four where vertical video makes the most sense. And we're going to put on the screen, we have the entire one-page church social media calendar in a document. Yeah. So you can take a screenshot. If you're listening to this, go to the YouTube video and take a screenshot of this. You can just like scrub. Oh, that's Brady's face. That's Alex's face. Oh, there it is. Take a screenshot.
We have podcasts and YouTube videos that kind of break down how to identify a good sermon clip, how to pull it out. But when you've done that, and you've scrubbed through a 20, 30, 40 minute sermon, and there are two moments that you really feel like, oh yeah, this speaks to really anyone, anywhere, that intersection of faith and culture. Do you think in today's era of social, we've talked about kind of where the state of the platforms are at, or this kind of like stagnation period, how important do you think it is to, now that you've identified a 30, 45, 60-second clip, to pull out a really excellent hook? Do you think that the hook is still as important as it has been to garner attention?
Well, getting back to the idea of you have to work and create more, or you have to work and create better. This is why I think right now, the AI tools that will kind of automatically do it for you, we're seeing diminishing returns with those. I think like there was a brief moment where even when we did our exercises and experimentation with them, they weren't outputting content that to my standards was being reached. Sure. But because attention was so much cheaper, there was still potential upside there.
Yeah, it could pass.
And, we work with 150 plus churches at socialsermons.com, creating their social media content for them. This is the calendar that we use. We're sharing it with you. If you want to work with us, book a call with me directly there. There's a conflict of interest there, right? That I wouldn't want to use AI tools because we do it for churches. No, I would love to use AI tools.
They're just not as good.
And charge churches way less.
Yes.
When they came out, I was like, this is great.
Yeah.
We don't have to charge starting at like $500 a month for social media content for these 2 sermon clips each week. We can charge like $199 a month or $99 a month, depending on like how quickly we can do this. We'll just become experts of using the tool, because you still need to know how to do the prompts to use these AI tools. And then these churches can get content that's great for less. And I would do the experiments with a bunch of different sermons because churches are sending us sermons every single week. And I was like, what? And so now when I get on calls with churches, I tell them, look, the real value of this, aside from like freeing up your time, is your editor watches through your sermon in its entirety every single week. And they get a feel for your church's unique communication style, your DNA. And that is what translates to better hooks. If attention is this much more expensive, the way that you break through is with a hook that is irresistible. Yeah. You can't just mail it in. And this is kind of the other side of the spectrum of what I said, work to create better or work to create more. You might look at what you're doing right now and be like, man, I'm already doing as much as I can and as best as I can. Most people listening are not. Most people are just checking a box. Yeah. And so the inverse of this increase in quality necessity or volume necessity is that what you're doing might not be enough to even like skirt by anymore. Yeah. and you need to like up your game. And so that might mean like, look, you just can't use these AI tools anymore. You need someone who like, and it could be you. It doesn't have to be like us. It could be you like saying, I sat through the sermon, but now I'm going to review it and I'm going to pay attention. And the reality is for creative folks, this can be like really monotonous work that's not especially fun because we want to go out and like create like our work of art. And like, it's like, oh, I have to watch the sermon again and pay extreme attention to a sermon I already heard again to pull 2 sermon clips.
Yeah.
And I have to do the same process every single week. Yeah, and it all hinges on that hook. So go watch the church social media masterclass. We share the exact exercises that we use in our team. You know, we're not holding anything back here. Go through that. We call it the 3 C's.
That's right.
That's how you can create the best hooks possible.
Well, that's the reason I ask is because of all the posts we're going to share today on this social media calendar for the week, the social sermons, you know, like these short form sermon clips are probably the most likely. They have the best chance to be that viral for me post. Yeah. It's because there's a real person on stage speaking to a real thing that hopefully is finding itself at the intersection of faith and culture. But if you don't take the time and intention to pull out a compelling hook out of the clip you're about to show, you're not going to garner anyone's attention. They're going to be swiping past. And that's what I'm seeing online on my Explore page is, okay, I see a lot more churches posting sermon clips. That's great. But the hooks are so low quality. If there's a hook at all, that no one's actually seeing them. The content itself is probably so valuable. It's really gold, but you have to do the work to get someone's attention first. And so that's why I asked the question there.
The other great thing about sermon reels is they're one of the few pieces of content that have a natural on-ramp into deeper connection. Mm-hmm. So what we've begun doing is DM automation at the end of sermon clips that are relevant. So let's say the hook is, the 2 words that you should never say to your kids. Mm-hmm. Okay, like everyone
have to watch that video.
Everyone has kids or was a kid. Mm-hmm. So that's irresistible. Then you get into the wisdom of scripture, talking about parenting. And then at the end you say, and if you want to hear this full message, DM kid, and we'll send it to you over DM. So now you're introducing your church to new people, which is creating opportunities for them to visit your profile, to get connected. A large amount of those people are going to be local proportionately because there's this reach viral to reach local paradigm. And then you're also creating opportunities for people to not just hear a 30 to 90 second clip, but to move over to YouTube, which is a platform of deeper connection where they can watch the sermon in its entirety. That sermon in its entirety invariably has moments that are encouraging people to connect deeper to the church within there. Yeah. So now you're creating multiple opportunities. And so that's why the bedrock, if all you can do is Tuesday and Thursday, do it and then take no weeks off. Yeah. Except for me when I took that 1 week off.
You earned it.
Yeah, just 10 years, okay? Come on.
Okay, what are we posting on Monday?
Okay, Monday is the classic quote post. We watch for quotes that are short and snappy.
From the sermon.
From the sermon.
Yeah.
All of this content is from the sermon, save for a couple things that we'll highlight. So watch for quotes that are short and snappy. And the great thing about this is it makes it sustainable, right? Because, hey, it's not you that's creating the sermon, ideally. It's the senior leader. They're doing that work. I have to come up with ideas and then design the posts and make them. All you have to do is design the post and make them.
And if you're sitting in the service listening to the sermon, I'll do this, right? When my dad's preaching, if I'm sitting in the service, if he says something, I'll just take out my phone and write it down right then. So I don't even have to go back and watch the sermon back later on in the week to find a quote. I'll just, if it stands out to me in real time, I'll take a note real time. Then all of a sudden I've got a high quality quote post to post later in the week.
Yeah, that's the thing. If you're sitting in service and you don't want to do the whole thing where you have to watch back the sermon, just pay really good attention in the moment.
Yeah.
And what I tell our team is there are 3 categories of quotes that perform well. There are quotes that are emotional, relatable, or bold. Anything that's going to elicit emotion has likelihood of performing well. If it's relatable, everyone goes, oh yeah, of course. Yes, I definitely know what that feeling is like. That's good. Or if it's bold. And a bold is, AKA hot take, whatever you might want to say. The Bible is explicit. It makes a lot of hot takes relative to what culture believes. It is the upside down kingdom. So when I say bold or hot take, this is not sensationalizing something. Right. It's just taking the wisdom of scripture that flies in the face of ordinary knowledge and presenting it as it is.
Yeah.
It does not mean being purposefully mean though. Right. We're going to publish these to Facebook as an image, Instagram as an image, and then you can publish it to X and Threads, text only.
Cool.
We've done the comparison. Don't publish the image, just text the text and publish it.
All right.
Wednesday, we've got our carousel and our text thread. We've said this before. I cannot believe the carousels are still performing this well.
Still working.
One day maybe they won't, but the best performing carousels are still bold headline, plain color background, just minimal design.
Low visual complexity.
Let the words stand on their own. And the way that we pull these is from a sermon is very similar to how we pull a sermon clip, where we'll again identify a 30 to 90 second like part that we think is really compelling. And then, and this is where AI is useful, we'll tell AI to transcribe those 90 seconds. And then we'll look at this transcription, which is trash, but the idea that compelled us in the first place is in there. And then we'll rewrite it in carousel form.
Yeah.
And then again, at the end, we'll also provide opportunity for connection. So usually in carousels, it's like, hey, DM us if you'd like to connect with a pastor, but you can also use DM automation there as well. And publish these to Instagram as a carousel. But then you also heard me say on Wednesdays, carousel or text thread. What's a text thread? Well, the one downside of carousels is they only work on Instagram.
Right.
Still, I do not know why Facebook.
How do they not work on Facebook? It's the same company.
Facebook was like, all we care about is trash vertical video. Facebook. Even groups, Facebook. So on X and on Threads and on Facebook, what we do with our carousels is we take the cover image, so the headline, the 2 words you should never say to kids, 1 by 1, it's a square, or 4 by 5. We publish that in an image post on Threads, on X, on Facebook. And then we take the text from slides 2, 3, 4 through 10 plus, whatever it is, and then that becomes the caption on the actual post.
Right.
So instead of publishing 9 images, just publish the first one and then take the text from the remaining 7, 8, 9 and then put that into the actual caption. That is what we call a text thread. Allows you to repurpose the carousel.
There was a comment in one of the church social Facebook groups a couple weeks ago, someone just saying like, hey, can you guys, I'm just looking for some inspiration, like how you post basically like content from your sermons. So lots of people were posting these little sermon reel videos. Now our church, we don't film our sermons. And so I was able to chime in and say, hey, alternatively, like we don't film our sermons. So actually this is how we do it. And the carousel is how we do it. So it's the same content I'm pulling out of the sermon. Either if it's a sermon I've preached, I'll just do it from my notes, or if someone else is preaching, I'll pull it out in real time. And then I'm doing a text post, a carousel post, with, again, low visual complexity. It's not text overlaid over top of an image of me preaching. It's just like, it's plain backgrounds. And I was able to share it in that comment thread. And the original poster, she replied to me, she's like, oh, this is super helpful. Like I can do this right away. So for churches who maybe aren't filming their preaching yet,
or if they're embarrassed by the quality of it.
Yeah. You can take the same content that you would have clipped for a sermon reel and turn it into a carousel post.
Very good. So we've got Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We'll pause here and say, we've already talked about like the Tuesday and Thursday only version of this calendar. The Monday to Thursday only version would be kind of like the step up.
Okay.
You're wanting to do a bit more. You're not ready to go the full way. So we pause here and say, hey, you could do Friday for promotion, move some of these around. You've got 5 posts each week.
That's great.
We always say the 1 in 5 rule. So long as no more than 1 out of every 5 are promotional, you're set. So we've got the 4, quote, sermon reel, carousel, sermon reel, and then that 5th slot is up for grabs for promotion. And then we can take it to the final full version of the social media calendar. And Friday we have the YouTube video. So this is our full length YouTube video.
Okay.
We've been publishing the sermon reels to shorts. The full length YouTube video is where when we're reviewing the sermon, we look for a 8 to 15 minute portion, let's say, that highlights a specific topic. So the example that I always use is when I was reviewing a sermon for a church, and it was kind of a typical 3-point sermon. And one of the points was dedicated to Jesus and Judas. So we pulled out that like point on its own and we retitled it, How to Handle Betrayal.
Which is optimized for search, basically.
Exactly.
It's not the sermon title.
No, the original sermon series title was like,
Betrayed.
Right. Right. And then it was like betrayed dash pastor's name dash January 13th, 2021 or whatever it was. Yeah. So the idea here is to, again, take a part of the sermon because as Alex mentioned, like, hey, the gold is in there. We just need to mine it. You pull it out, you create a custom thumbnail, you create the custom title, and then you publish that to YouTube. Now, there are multiple different ways that you can do this. Life Church does this. They have a single channel. They have their live tab where like the full services are in, and then they have their like home tab where they have the excerpts. Elevation does this in a different way where they have 2 channels. So on Ferdic's channel, that's where they have kind of the shorter ones, the excerpts. And then on the elevation channel is where they have the full length ones. So it's totally up to you how you do this. But there are multiple ways to actually set up and publish it. That's one of the big questions we get about this. And then we're going to publish this, of course, to YouTube. But there's also another post we're publishing on Friday because YouTube is kind of like its own thing.
Sure.
And that is our first portrait post. And a portrait post is the perfect accompaniment to the sermon content. Portrait post is not the type of content that's going to reach broad audiences, but what it is going to do is highlight what your church's vibrant community is actually like. The simplest version of a portrait post is a photo of church life with a fun little caption. You can make it a carousel and do 5 photos. Carousels are 10 plus. Put in 50 photos. I'm swiping forever. And you can also use like CapCut templates, or you could go as far as like a church skit that we see are tremendously popular now. Those are all portrait posts where the spotlight is on your church's people in usually like the vicinity of where your church meets. So it's recognizable people in a recognizable location. So Friday, YouTube video and portrait post. Saturday, we're running a portrait post again. I like running them on Friday and Saturday because they're lead ups to Sunday. So when the saints are scattered and the weekend is beginning, they're seeing on their social feed the people that they see on Sunday, which is a good way to kind of prime the pump for the Sunday gathering. And we also know, like, look, you know, not everyone goes to church every single week. The more you see people in the church building on a Friday or Saturday, the closer it is in proximity to actually Sunday happening, the more likely that is an indicator or just, you know, a helpful push. Oh, on Sunday, I'm going to go. You publish it on Monday, like, or Tuesday, Wednesday. It's so far away that it likely has no impact. I'm not saying that a social post, like, well, now everyone comes to church every single week. But if we were looking at the week as a whole, the sooner we can publish it in proximity to Sunday, the more likely it has some impact.
Sure.
Even if it's minimal.
And these portrait posts are such a valuable thing to have on your grid because the way folks are looking for churches in your area is pulling their phone out of their pocket and searching churches near me, probably landing on your website. And when or if they land on your website, or maybe you come up in the Google business profile and they may be clicking on Instagram right from Google business profile. They may be clicking on your website, swiping all the way down to the footer and clicking on Instagram right away because they want to see if your church website doesn't do a great job of showing high quality photos from your church. They want to see what your church is like. And so when they land on your Instagram profile, maybe they want to see what your pastor had to say last week, but what they really want to see is what types of people is this community made up of? And does it look like me, if that's a value I have? Does it look like I'm going to fit in there? And so these portrait posts serve a really a vital purpose for folks who are checking out your church website and your church social accounts. They're your virtual front door. Like anyone who's coming to visit your church is most likely to interact with you online first before ever walking through your front doors. So these posts do such a great job of showing off like, hey, this is, maybe this carousel post gives you a little insight into like what we believe about marriage or parenting or whatever, but this is what our church looks like.
Sidebar, I have become increasingly annoyed when I visit a church's website and their social accounts are not linked in the footer. The previous problem was like, where is your address? Where is your service times? Some don't have them at all. And then like, if they're not in the footer, where am I supposed to look? At least for address and service times, like there's usually a plan a visit or about us section. Like I have no idea where to find these Instagram accounts. It happens all the time when a church books a call with me and I'm like, okay, you're evaluating social sermons. Great. Like, what are you doing currently on social?
Would love to know.
Can't find it. I had a call with a church the other day and I was like, they're like, how can we improve our website? And I was like, well, the current social posts, or links, they don't even link to an account.
Oh, geez. But just say Instagram.com?
It was like a handle that doesn't exist.
Oh, geez.
But they had a real account.
Yes.
The problem was then it was also linking on their Google business profile.
Oh, boy.
But on Google, like the 8th link was their actual Instagram. So we fixed that, which was great.
Hey, these are probably the second most likely post out of all these to be a viral for me post. In my estimation and my experience of all these posts, the sermon reels probably first, but the next post likely to go viral for you is probably one of these portrait posts that shows off real people from your church. Whether it is, I saw one this week, Sounds from Sunday, and it was like a video montage of Sunday, but there was no music playing in the background. It was, they had just recorded the sounds of each of those clips, and that one went off for their church, which is awesome because for them because they do really high quality sermon reels. And I was looking at the views, and this one got my attention because I had way more views than the rest. So I clicked on it, and it was just like this little reel of like, yeah, this is what our church kind of sounds like on Sunday. So these posts are also likely to possibly be a viral for me post because, hey, we connect with images, videos of real people online. And that's the stuff that if we belong to that church community, if we were there on that worship night, that's the stuff we're eager to share, either with our friends and family or to our story. And those are all valuable signals to the platform. Like, hey, this is a good, high quality post that should probably be shown to more people.
Now we should make the distinction that those posts going viral are likely going viral within the church subculture. Whereas a sermon reel, when it goes viral, is going viral amongst all people. It's assuming that it is not like a very insider hook.
Yes.
And so those do have like different values to a church. I think the sermon reel, when it goes viral, is more likely to be introducing your church to people that are local to you, that don't know God, that could get connected to your church. Whereas it's me and Alex who are going to see that and we'll go, sweet, what a great post. I should do this for my church. So that's the only thing that's worth mentioning. Yeah. Just because it has the same numbers doesn't mean it's reaching the same demographics. Finally, this is an extra, okay?
The overachievers.
Yeah. There's a reason why it's here. So, well, let's say it like this. You go through the process of making the YouTube video, right? And you've created like how to handle betrayal. This is kind of similar to like making the carousel. You've pulled the part of the sermon, you've transcribed it for the carousel. So we're like, well, we've already done the YouTube version. Like, what if we transcribe the full 8 to 12 minute version? The transcription, again, is trash, but the idea is there.
Yeah, we can fix that up.
So then we rewrite that, and then we turn it into a full-length blog post. Yeah. And so now, every single week, we have a part of the sermon that has been turned into a blog post that is now indexed for search. So it's, if all things are being equal, like bolstering our SEO presence relative to like if we had a platform, a website that was never getting updated. Perhaps more importantly, now it becomes the content that we can send out to our church via newsletter every single week. It's not just like watch the sermon. It's a certain part of the sermon that now they're experiencing if they were in service in a different way. So it's like familiar, but in a brand new medium. And it also becomes useful content in all pastoral care. So imagine you have like the how to handle betrayal. Now you're doing pastoral care with someone and you're talking about like whatever it is, like, friendship or, spouse, whatever it is. And you're like, oh, by the way, like this is, something that I wrote, and as they're leaving, you just give it as like, hey, by the way, here's what do we normally do in pastoral care? It's like, oh, and here's a great article that this pastor wrote, or here's a great book on this, but it's like not personal to your ministry or your church. Well, now you have something. And once you've gone through this, actually, wait, okay, you. I forgot. Bye.
We're doing this in real time. When he brought these in today, I thought, I wonder if we're going to show these on the podcast. And then he didn't bring them into the studio. And I thought, well, maybe we won't show these on the podcast. But now here we are. They're in the studio and we're showing them on the podcast.
Yeah, this wasn't my plan, but I actually brought these in today. So at the end of the year, you have 52 of these. So for those listening, what we've done is we've turned these into print ready.
If you've never watched on YouTube before, now might be the time.
You want the screenshot for the social calendar.
You want the calendar and you want to see these.
So this is a print ready book that we made for a church, and this comprises all 52 of their essays into this coffee table style book. It cost us like $21 to print, and we'll probably do, let us know if you want like a full video on like how to make these and like the print settings and all that. And it's like developing the habit of prayer, strengthening your connection with God. That was 1 week. Breaking bad habits, a path to freedom. That was another week. The most important cause, sharing the gospel. That was another week. How to develop a training plan for spiritual growth. That was another week. 4 habits for spiritual growth. So like these were all YouTube videos, but they also became blog posts.
Yes.
Neatly formatted. They are scannable. They're easy to read and skim through. And now you have them as this like permanent thing. So this was like one style we did. This was another style for another church. This is great audio for those listening. This is another style for another church.
There are 3 hardcover bound books that are simply a collection of a summary or a section or maybe the entire thing of the 52 sermons that were preached in each one of these churches in context of community. And I love the idea of this as a pastor because sometimes, and now I'll get very like open and honest here.
Ah, yes.
Like writing a sermon to preach to a group of people is a vulnerable act, and it requires a lot of thought, intention, and in some cases effort.
Yes.
And sometimes you write a sermon and you're thinking about someone in your church, be like, oh, this is going to be such a word for them. And I'm so excited to open the scriptures and say this to our community and say this to them. And then you get up there on Sunday and they're like not there. And it's like, this is such a great and valuable record of what was our journey like as a church this year? And for some folks who like want to go back and revisit something that marked them on a Sunday morning, for someone who was at the cottage, they get to go back and read at the cottage on their dock. Like, I missed July 24th last year, and I heard it was a really good sermon, and I heard it would have spoken to me, and so now I get to read it. And then over years, you collect these, and you have this history of the journey you've been on with Jesus in community. You can tell I'm feeling very excited.
Well, you saw these books and you were like, whoa, like, I've been talking about them for a year plus, because it takes a whole year of like doing the work to actually have them for the church. Yeah. So we do this again. This whole social media calendar we do for churches in all three stages, in like the small version, the mid version, and the full version. This is the full version, socialsermons.com. You can book a call. It will be directly with me. Sometimes people are surprised. They're like, oh my gosh, it's you. It's actually you. I thought you just get like someone on your team. If you want us to do this all for you, and put in the comments if you'd like a YouTube video on like the process of creating these books.
Yeah, you can do it yourself.
Right. Like the 52 sermons will be made. Mm-hmm. There is work that goes into like transcribing the moment, picking out the moment from the sermon, and then rewriting it into a blog post. Yeah. But like the sermon's going to be made. And we do find, perhaps not surprisingly, the pastors really like this. Like, oh, I did all this work and like, here it is in its final form, or at least this more permanent form. What I'll also say is that, it's a really rewarding process to go through when you like kind of see it like this. You can, of course, send it out via ebook.
Yeah, you don't have to print it, right?
But we found a way, like these are hard copy, color, $20 to print, Canadian.
Yeah.
So I was like, $1 American. I was like, $15 American to print. And so you can like purchase these and give them out to people. Mm-hmm. You can have people buy them at cost. So like you recoup. Yeah. Or you can just give the ebook version. And so that way it's free. Mm-hmm. What we found, we've done this with our newsletter, the 167. You can subscribe, 167.prochurchtools.com. Goes out every Thursday. I'm not coming with new content for the newsletter. It's usually like a carousel post that I've published on Instagram that I'm sending out to the newsletter because not everyone sees every single thing.
It's just in a different medium.
Right. Now, I usually take it verbatim. This is not verbatim. Right. It's the idea of part of the sermon then rewritten into a blog post form. So you could send this out every single Thursday or whatever day for your newsletter, right? The week after it was first preached. And then at the end of the year, you have the book. Like now you're covering all these different bases where that sermon that only gets preached once is now living in all of the short form content online throughout the week. It's got its permanent home in like the live tab. It's got another permanent home in the home tab or on a separate YouTube channel in like a more palatable form that people are finding on the second biggest discovery search engine in the world. Yeah. Then you're sending out the newsletter every single week. And at the end of the year, you got the book. Yeah. So now all this work that your senior leader is putting in is being like repurposed in really dramatic, significant ways. So you can screenshot the social media calendar. You can book a call at socialsermons.com, do it yourself, have us do it for you. All is great. Any final thoughts?
Oh, I've got thoughts, all right, but I'll save that for off the air. I just want you to make one of these for me.
Oh, you want one of the books? Okay, I see. Well, maybe one of the perks of working here. Thank you for your time, attention, and trust. We will talk to you next Wednesday. Are you the new pope?
Donald Trump wants to be the new pope.
That was strange.
That was really strange.